I think with that we should probably move on to the first story, which is, of course, Rosie Duffield endangers women and former staff members. This story actually started before last show, and it's actually way before the content that we discussed last show. But sadly, last show I think we had 12 points, and we kind of had to run through them. There were details that were kind of being left out. We were keeping the focus very specifically on trans people. But it isn't just trans people that are impacted by the actions of Rosie Duffield. For those who don't know, Rosie Duffield is a Labour MP who has had problematic tweeting habits since 2017, who has been sharing, liking, posting a load of rather transphobic content. She's been called out at various points. She kind of drew back under the Corbyn era. But with Keir Starmer now in charge, she has just let loose everything. And it's just absolute hell. She's tweeting out that trans people are just drag, etc. People in drag, and all the transphobic myths about women's spaces and everything like that. So it's really been it's been absolutely disheartening to watch, because the current Labour leader is doing absolutely nothing to rein it in. However, that doesn't mean nobody is standing up to her, as is the story that we are covering today. Back in August, there was a staff member, Rosie Duffield's only LGBT plus staff member, a cis lesbian, who resigned over Rosie Duffield's transphobic comments. More recently, a second staff member has also resigned, another cis woman. And the whole thing has just sort of exploded from there. These resignations, of course, come at a time of extreme economic uncertainty. We have the ongoing pandemic, the economic crisis is still going on. So for people just to say, you know what, I reject that, I'm going to leave, I'm going to resign, I'm going to give up my financial security, that is... I can't... That is actual allyship. That is not performative. That is someone putting their money where their mouth is and, doing something that has the potential to cause them a lot of harm because they're standing up for their principles. This is not performative bullshit. That I was expecting that to be where the story ended. Rosie, however, had other thoughts. Whilst both of these staff members approached Pink News with the story of why they left, as long as they were kept anonymous, Rosie Duffield has gone ahead and shared private information identifying both of these individuals, which comes under the act of doxing. And this has resulted in both individuals receiving a lot of abuse and harassment. So it's quite an interesting thing to consider when Rosie Duffield's running around claiming that she's doing everything that she's doing. She's putting out all this transphobic content, etc. All to protect women. Only for her to out to women so that they receive an extraordinary amount of abuse from the gender-critical cult. It kind of pulls apart the thread behind that entire narrative and lays it bare for exactly what it is, an excuse to hate trans people.
Especially when she complains so much about the harassment she gets when people slightly disagree with her.
Yeah. I mean, what do these people do? They resigned and they spoke out about why they resigned. That is their right to do. That is their right to protest. So much of the world gets caught up about the right way to protest, and these people, they did not do anything. They did not go and yell at her. They did not break down doors, which, rioting has its place. I'm not saying that you can't ever riot or anything like that, but they resigned. They resigned, went to a newspaper, and shared their thoughts, shared why they resigned. And that's the fact that they didn't feel safe in proximity of Rosie Duffield's transphobia. And that's a feeling that's shared by many people, both trans and cis. We have people like Becky Scott Fairley in the chat telling us that that's why they left Labour. That's why they resigned as a member. So, you know, it's going to cost the Labour movement pretty much all of the positive gains it made under Corbyn. Don't get me wrong, Corbyn wasn't perfect. You know, there were transphobes who managed to survive under him, but there was also a lot of positive that did happen under him. There was people that were being called out. There were people who were kicked out of the party. Venice Allen, that's her name. Who many people may know as Dr. Radfem online. She was a former Labour member. She went ahead and stalked a trans teenage MP, and she got kicked out of the party for it. You know, so yeah, it's kind of disheartening to see all of that just put under the rug. Keir actually spoke out on the issue recently, and he played the whole respectability on both sides sort of thing. This idea that, you know, oh, Rosie Duffield's like, they're fine, and, you know, oh, it's a toxic environment. It's nothing to do with the fact that what Rosie is saying is inherently harmful and damaging to the trans community. So, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that. I know we have the...
Not really. I was actually just going to say we should probably move on to the next story.
Well, we first... No, we still have the trade union dimension. I was just thinking if you had anything you wanted to add on that. What this all resulted in is the trade union for MP staff actually came forward and passed a unanimous motion. This is GMB member staff, calling for an investigation, calling for Rosie Duffield to be removed from the women's position, and pretty much condemning every aspect of what she did. So it's not like there is no pressure. There is. It's just that the Labour leadership right now is absolutely inefficient. So, yeah. So it is positive, you know, in a union trying to tackle this. Sadly, it's not going so well. That's just the sad way of things right now.